Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Satish Menon, and this is the Agiliron version 9 introductory webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. The plan in terms of the next hour is essentially focused on communicating some of the big elements of what's coming in V9. And the top three bullets that you see here, which is the new business intelligence module, the POS-related enhancements, and then CRM and back office enhancements. These are the three really big buckets where most of the changes and feature additions have gone into V9. So we'll spend about a third of the time in this hour on each of those buckets, and it'll be a combination of foils that I'll walk through, as well as live demo and stepping through, how some of these things are actually implemented in the system. We'll touch a little bit on the warehouse management app, some of the new things that have gone into that as well. And then finally, we'll close with the rollout plan for V9, as well as touching on some of the things that's in development and we expect to see getting rolled out sometime in Q4 of this year. So when it comes to the business intelligence module, this is a new one that we've added. We've been working on this for quite some time, and it's in response to what has been a lot of requests around management reporting. So while the reporting capability that we currently have in the system does deliver the ability for you to extract data and export it out into CSV files and stuff like that, it's not sufficient for aggregating data and doing charting and those types of things. And that's really what this new module is meant to address, is add a lot more sophistication on the reporting front. So we'll have some standard reports similar to what we currently have in our reporting module. So many of them will essentially move over into this module as well. But then beyond that, we'll look at the drag and drop report designer that we have included in this new module, where you can create custom reports. And then it has a lot of the features that are missing currently in our standard reporting module, which is things like aggregation, calculated fields, formulas, and so on, as well as timed reports. So you can set a report to run at a particular time and have it automatically email results and those types of things. We've also added a lot of customization capabilities on the formatting front. Like, for example, if you wanted to change the labels on the column headers, or if you wanted to change the formatting of how the data is represented, and so on and so forth, we have all of those kinds of things built into this new BI module as well. And we'll walk through some of those things today. The exports, we have added exports to various formats like Excel and PDF and Word, etc., and we'll look at that as well. Finally, we have charting capabilities. So this is something we don't have today, and this new BI module adds the ability for you to add charting based on the report data that you essentially pull together. And there's a lot of capabilities there in terms of the types of charts that you can use, and again, customization in terms of how it's presented and so on and so forth. Finally, the customizable dashboard. So once you've created a lot of reports and charts and stuff like that, we also have a separate layout designer that allows you to create a customizable dashboard where you basically pull together exactly the kinds of things that you might want to look at together on, let's say, a daily basis or a weekly basis. Okay. The new BI module is Enterprise Edition only. So if you're not an enterprise, then this is not something that will be available as part of the Agiliron subscription. So I'll switch to the demo, and before I do that, let me just mention a couple of housekeeping things. So all the attendees are muted as part of this webinar, but there is a chat window that's there in your GoToWebinar window where you can go in and post questions. And this is a fairly packed schedule today in terms of what we need to cover, so we may not have a lot of time to go over do Q&A, but we'll try to catch a few of them at the end if you want to post the questions to the chat window that on the GoToWebinar window that you have. And then we are recording this session, so once we complete the webinar, hopefully by end of the day, we'll essentially send out the recording to everybody that has registered for this session. Okay. Okay, so let me switch over to the demo of the business intelligence module. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice here is that we've added a new menu item here in the left panel for business intelligence. And if you go to that, you're essentially initially presented with what is essentially a navigation area for all the different reports and such that you might have pulled together. And this is a combination of standard ones that come with the system that we provide, and then custom ones that you may create. Okay, so the organization here is much like any folder structure. So under standard reports, you can see these things are categorized by different modules in the system. So for example, if we go to the sales orders module, you can see there is a sales orders detailed report here. Okay, and we'll obviously continue to enhance this with additional ones over a period of time. If we go back to the all view here, and then you can actually sort this thing here by alphabetical, or if you want to change the layout, you can go from the thumbnail view that you see currently to a list view, right? And there's of course the search as well that's available. Okay, so let's go back to our sales orders view here. And here for this sales orders detailed report that we have, I can click on this button here and I can go ahead and open this report. And this loads the data from your particular database using the reporting that we've essentially built as part of the standard report that we are providing here. Okay, so it's a pretty simple report. It provides a few columns of data, and there are about 163 records. And this is doing a paging where it's showing the first 100, and then you can page over to the next one and shows you the remaining ones. Okay, so that's the basic presentation of what a table report looks like. And then for this report, now you can see there are a few controls here at the top that you can use to operate on this report that you've run. Okay, so the first is I can click this and I can do an export. Okay, so if I say export to XLSX, which is the Excel format, I can click that. And that will open up this report in Excel. And you'll notice here that the presentation of this is exactly like it was on what you saw on the screen, right? So, so this is not a CSV export. This is a full Excel export. And one of the choices that we had when we did that export is to say we want to maintain the formatting, in which case what you see on the screen is what you get export out into the Excel file. Okay. So similarly, we could do the same thing for PDFs or Word documents and so on. So that's the first piece here is the export. The second piece here is I can share this report with somebody. Okay, so for users that are already in the system, I can send this to any of the recipients, or I can send an email pointing them to this particular report. And you can attach that either as an Excel file or a CSV file or a PDF. So you can decide in what format you want to actually share this with somebody else. Okay, so that's the second piece here. The third is a broadcast capability. So this is where if you wanted to set up something to run at a particular frequency, or if you wanted to run an FTP to a particular site, this is where you can go ahead and come and set that thing up. So let's say, for example, I set up a personal broadcast. Okay, so here I can put an email subject and a body to myself. Again, I can select what format I want this to be sent. And then here I can select the frequency at which this thing is run. So let's say, for example, the default here is, let me run this weekly every Saturday, or let's say Monday morning, right? And I can set up this subscription. And what happens then is that this report gets automatically executed at that time, and an email essentially delivered to your inbox with the export of that report in the format that you've chosen to actually send this. Okay, so this is the time report part of this, where you can essentially set these subscriptions up and have these things automatically land in your inbox. Okay. This is adding favorites. So if there are specific reports that you want to kind of elevate as your favorites, you can click this and do that. And then the final piece here is the ability for you to take a snapshot. You might run these reports at different times, and obviously if you want to save off data, let's say end of month report for sales, and you want to save this thing over time where you want to record the one at the end of July and the end of August and so on, you can do that by using this create snapshot. So what this allows you to do is essentially take a snapshot at a particular point in time, save that off, and then you can come back and pull that up later and see what that data looked like. So you can add the historical stuff into your database here. Okay, so that's basic capabilities. Once you have a report set up, this is the way you run it, and then these are the kinds of things that you can do to operate on that particular report. Okay. Now let me switch over and go into what it takes to actually create a custom report. Okay. So all the new things that you create all start with this round plus button. Okay, so if I come here and I say I want to create a new report. So here I get to select various views that we have set up for the different modules. So let me choose the sales orders one for now. Okay, so when I select the sales orders view, you can see here on the left panel that it gives me all the fields that are relevant in the context of sales orders. So there's obviously the ones that are specific to sales orders themselves, but everything correlated with it is also available in these different buckets that's listed out here. Okay, so let me start with the sales orders information, which is the basic set of fields that are available here. Okay. So what we're going to do here with in terms of constructing this custom report is we're going to take some of these fields that are available, and we're going to drag them and drop them here as columns to essentially construct the set of things that we want to see as part of this report. Okay, so I'll start with the order number. Okay, and then I'll add the order total. I'll add the created time. Okay, I'll add the channel order ID, which identifies, the order ID in the channel that this order came from. And then let me pick one of the other ones from one of the other buckets, which is the customer name. Okay, now I can actually drag this thing around and change the sequence in which these things are presented. Okay. And I'll move this to the left. And then, so now we have a report here that we've constructed. Okay, pretty simple, right? We took a bunch of fields. Now, obviously, these are fields, many of them that you will recognize. Obviously, our goal is to essentially expose the entire database of fields that's available and the data that's been aggregated into them and have the ability for you to essentially, pull out exactly what you need. Okay. So now that we have this report, let's go and do some customization in terms of the formatting and how this is presented. Okay, so I'll start with the account name, and let me go and change some of the formatting here. Okay, so first what I'll do is I'll select this suppress duplicates. Okay, which essentially means that it'll essentially group all the same account names together, so that you can now see that all the orders from account name 1 are presented together as one block. Okay. Let me go into the order number. You can see this thing is showing commas as 1000 separator, which we don't want. So I'll go ahead and edit that. Okay, so let me turn off the 1000 separator. Okay, and that updated the order number. Now the order total here, let me go ahead and make some changes to formatting of that. And we could have done these things together by just selecting the fields here and making the changes, as opposed to closing it and opening it like I just did. Let me add decimal places too, and then I'll add a prefix, the $. Okay, and then I'll display that. Okay, so now you can see that we've made changes to how the order total amounts are presented. Okay, One other thing we could do is change the labels that we see for each of these column headers. So let me go ahead and edit that. Instead of account name, I'll say customer. Okay. Okay, so now we have this report somewhat formatted the way that we want, and it kind of shows you some of the capabilities available here for you to really customize exactly how you want this report to be presented. Okay, so next what we can do is I can show you some of the other things that we could do here. One, for example, is sections. Okay, so with sections, what you can do is select one of these fields and say I want to essentially have this presented as separate sections. In which case, when I run this report, what you will see is that it's essentially presenting now this data customer by customer, as each of them as a separate section. Okay, so here you can see that this presentation, you can see this thing is now broken up, one customer after the other, okay, and you got this sort of real nice table that flows, okay. We could add certain capabilities here for conditional for the way that this section is presented as well, okay. So here I could come and, for example, instead of having a single page, I could have said, let me change this to a tabbed presentation, okay. In which case now this thing will collapse down to a set of tabs that you can look at one after the other. Okay, so here's an example, right? So now I can click this, and I can see each of these things presented separately. Okay, so that's the mechanism to present things as sections. Now we can go back and let's turn on some filtering to be able to pull together. So I'll put this thing back, and then let me add account name as a filter. Okay, so now here you can see on the right I have a button for filtering. Okay, and now I can get a list of all the accounts, and if I wanted to just see a presentation of a few of them, I can essentially select from a list here that will come up in a second. Okay, so this is taking a little while, so why don't we kind of move on to some of the other things. Let me go ahead and present some of the other capabilities like calculated fields. So here, this is obviously the list of all the fields that are available that we are presenting, but if you wanted to create some of your own that's based on a combination of fields that might exist in this in this table, then this is your calculated field creator, if you will, where you can come in and put in formulas, and you can select obviously from the list of fields that are available to present exactly the kinds of things that you might want to pull together. You can see here there are capabilities for all the typical operations, including else and if and cases and then things like that. So pretty sophisticated capabilities here for you to be able to create some of these calculated fields. Okay. So let me kind of pause there. I know we are somewhat short on time, so I'll just quickly run through a couple of other things. So this is a basic reporting capability in terms of pulling together the data, presenting it in a tabular format. Now we can go to charts here and create some charts from the same data. Okay, so based on the fields that we've selected, I could, for example, select customer here and the horizontal axis, and then let's say I pick the order total on the vertical, or maybe I'll switch these things around. Yeah, this is fine. So here, obviously, this is pretty dense because we haven't really filtered the list of account names, but this is a simple chart that we created. Now you'll notice here that the auto chart capability here is the one that the system automatically, based on the fields that you've picked, it will decide what's sort of the best way to present this. But you certainly have the option to go ahead and choose a different one yourself, in which case you've got all the standard things that you might expect in terms of bar charts, column charts, scatter plots, and so on and so forth. Okay, so but the auto capability is pretty nice because then based on the data, the system automatically picks one that seems optimal and then presents that. Okay, so so this is the charting side of it, and then if I go to the output, we also have the ability for you to combine these different charts that you might have, and then let me go ahead and go. Okay, so here you can see now that we had combined, we had a chart, and then we also had tabular data, that both of these things got presented together as part of this particular report. So when you're creating these charts, it doesn't have to be restricted to one. You can actually add any number of these charts together. Okay, so here's the first one that we created, but then we could have also added a second one, right? So once you have the data pulled together, you can create multiple charts displaying exactly the kinds of things that you want to visualize. And then when you create that output, you can bring together the charts along with the tabular data and present the whole piece together. Okay, so that's the report side of things. And let me go ahead and save this report that we've created. Okay, so we'll call this V9 demo. I'll go ahead and save that. Okay, and then now I can come back here and I can create a dashboard that takes all of the stuff that you've already created and now has a drag and drop ability for you to position these together and present that as one sort of integrated dashboard, right? So we could pick multiple charts that we have. Okay, so let's start with the one that we just created. Okay, so we can tag this, we can drag it here. Okay, so so that's essentially the dashboard side of this, is that we can pull together different pieces of what all the different reports that one might create and essentially present them together as one particular tab. And then so you could create multiple of these dashboards, one for sales, one for purchasing, whatever the case might be, and then essentially customize what that presentation is. And you can essentially arrive here, pull up these dashboards, and immediately get a real-time feedback in terms of how the business is doing on that particular front. Okay. So we are about 25 minutes in, so let me kind of pause there as far as the reporting module is concerned. Suffice it to say, there is a lot of capabilities within the business intelligence module. What I showed today is obviously just scratching the surface. I think what we will do is obviously present a somewhat more extended form webinar just focused on BI that can kind of go into some of these capabilities in a little bit more depth. Okay, so so with that, let me switch over to the next topic, which is the point of sale. Okay, so here on the point of sale, we have added a lot of features that are things that have been requested, and this is a bit of a laundry list of things that are rolling out in V9. Okay, so the first one is on-hold orders. So this is the ability for you to pause the customer checkout midstream, and then to allow you to process other customers while you wait for this customer to go continue shopping and then come back and then complete the order. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these capabilities one by one. So I'll log into the point of sale. Okay, so you'll notice here at the bottom now we have a couple of buttons here. One is for on-hold orders, right? So The usage here is pretty simple. You go ahead and add something to the cart, and then you put this order on hold. Okay, and then you can go about going through other transactions, and then this button on the top left here, which says show hold orders. When you're ready to come back and pick this thing up, you can click this. It'll present the on hold orders that you have pending, and then you can select that and add that back to the cart, and then complete the checkout. Okay, so in this particular case, let's say I say this is Fortnite 43, and then now I can go ahead and complete this checkout. Okay, and here is the receipt, which we will not print right now. Okay, so that's the on-hold orders. Similarly, we have support for layaways. This allows a customer to make a deposit on the purchase and then make subsequent payments at a later time. Okay, so very similar process to on-hold orders, how layaways work. So you go ahead and add the products to the ticket. You do have to select a customer, since you need to know who it is that is going to come back and pay for the rest. We'll add a cash payment here. Let's say there's a $10 initial deposit that's being paid. Okay, and then I can click the layaway button to post this order as a layaway order. Okay, so now on this particular receipt, you can see that it says paid with cash and how much the balance due is. Okay, so let me cancel that. And here now, if the customer comes back at a later time to make the additional payment, now we have a button here for show layaway orders. So when I click that, I can select the one that I just posted. And now I can come back and make an additional payment. So let's say this time it's a check payment, and I add $20 to that. Okay, I can go ahead and click layaway again to update this particular payment to that layaway order. Okay, so so that's the way that layaways work. Now let's go to the next one. So one of the additional capabilities we've added is the ability for you to use credit in the store, where if a customer returns something, instead of refunding their dollars, that you can issue them a in-store credit, which they can apply against future purchases. Okay, and so when you go back to the POS, you'll see that there is a button here for credit. So this is now one of the payment methods that's supported. There is also a button up here that allows you to see how much credit does a customer carry. Okay, so once I select a customer, I can click this, and it'll tell me how much credits this particular customer has. Okay, so you know how much you can apply to a future order. Okay, and then the same credit capabilities there in the returns, which is where you can issue the credit, and then on the sales side, apply credits that the customer may have already in the store towards a future purchase as the payment method. Okay. The store card support. So Bantu Mercury is one of the payment processors that we support on the POS, and one of the capabilities that Mercury offers is gift cards and store cards. Store card is pretty nice capability, similar to other store cards that you may be familiar with, like a Starbucks store card and so on, where you can essentially add value to it, use it for purchases and stuff like that. But the other nice thing about it is that you as a business can implement a loyalty program on that particular store card. Okay, and you can designate that, if there's $50 of purchases, that you create you add basically some percentage of what their spending is as value to the card. In addition, it does include a mobile app similar to the Starbucks one, for example, which you can use to add value to it, and so on. Okay. So the place that the support for managing the gift and store cards is in the tools menu up here. Okay, so you can see there are 3 links up here in the tools menu. One for issuing cards. Okay, so if you were issuing a new card to a customer, you would click that, you would put in the amount, you would select whether it's a gift card or a store card, and then you would actually put in the card number that you're issuing. Okay. Similarly, there's a capability for you to reload. Okay, so if a customer comes into the card and wants to add some value to it, you can do that through this POS as well. Okay, and then finally you can do a check the balance as well. Okay, now on the store card, the customers can actually check the balance online or through the app as well. But if this is done in store, then you have the ability for you to do that for the customer as well. Okay. Okay, so that's the store card. Clock in, clock out. So we now have time tracking capability in the point of sale, and this again is in the menu up here for you to do clock in, clock out. Okay, and this is pretty simple. You would click clock in or clock out, and then the time is automatically registered. If there's a note that you want to include, you can do that, and that's pretty much it. But once you're using this feature, there is a time tracking report that we have now added to the reports here. Okay, which allows you to see a list of check-in, checkouts that have been done and so on. And let me change one of these dates, and maybe we'll see some data. Okay, so here's a report of a couple of clock-ins and clock-outs and what was the total time spent and so on. With this report, you can do a print or you can email this as well. Okay. Okay, so that's the clock in, clock out. And then we have added a cash drawer report for you to reconcile the cash in the drawer. Okay, and this is available through the reports here as well. Okay, so this is the ZR drawer count report. Okay, and you can come in here, you can put in the begin and how much you're leaving and so on, and then reconcile this. If you want to count the specific denomination of currencies, you can do that as well and add all that stuff up. Okay. Okay, automatic offline detection. So one of the capabilities that we have supported in previous versions is the Agiliron offline capability for the point of sale, which allows you to continue to process transactions even if you lose an internet connection, right? And what we've added in V9 is the ability for the system to automatically detect that, as opposed to you manually having to go toggle between offline and online. Okay, so here we've added a heartbeat capability so that it continuously checks, and if it detects the internet connection is lost, it automatically goes into the offline mode, and then once it detects it's back, it comes back online. Okay. Email receipt, email capture to the CRM. So we've had the capability for you to choose what type of receipt you want to hand the customer, and typically it's something that you might use at trade shows and stuff like that, where you may not have a receipt printer, is use email receipts on a tablet. And so now what we've done is added, if you do issue an email receipt and you get that customer's email address, those email addresses are captured into the CRM so that you can use that for future email marketing. And then finally here, the return side of things. So the obviously what we're trying to do with this platform is bring together both the online and in-store commerce under one umbrella. And what this particular step does is essentially allow you to continue to converge those things, where things that happen, let's say online, can actually be, purchases made online can now be returned through the POS in store. And so this is part of that continued convergence of supporting interoperability across the various channels that we include within the platform. Finally, all of these features that we talked about, most of them except things like email receipts or returns, which are obviously generic capabilities, all the other capabilities that we talked about, these are new features, and by default they're all off. So no surprises, when we upgrade to V9, you go there, you're not going to suddenly see some of these buttons show up unless you explicitly go into your channel settings, in settings channels, and you edit the POS channel and turn each of these things on. So you have control over when you want to kind of use these capabilities, and so if you decide you want to use one of them, then you please do go to that POS channel settings and turn them on, because they're all off by default. Okay. All right, so the final piece here is the EMV terminal support. So this has obviously been a a big request, and we've been working with Mercury as one of the payment processors where we have added support for EMV terminals. So the first one of those, which is using devices from a vendor called Deja Vu, which includes support for swipe, pin pads, the EMV card dip, as well as NFC, contactless payment processing. So these devices and their support is something that should be available by early September. With the usage of these, the way the POS processes payments is going to be different. And the next few files I'll kind of walk you through what that looks like. But what that also means is that the payment processing actually happens directly between the terminal and your payment processor. It does not go through the POS. Okay. So as a result, the certification of each of these devices does need to be done by the payment processor, which is why this early September date is really dependent on Mercury essentially certifying this particular piece of hardware. Okay, so as of now, they're in beta, and the expectation is by early September it will be available in production. Okay, so these two devices that I've shown, the one on the left is the one that you might typically use in retail. And the one on the right is something that's really meant for mobile. So it's an easy sort of, it looks like a calculator, fits in your palm of your hand, that type of thing. So that's something that you might essentially use for tablets and so on. Okay. Okay, so let me flip through a few files that walks you through the process of how these devices work. Okay. Let me go to full screen mode here. Yeah. So the first thing you have to do when you set up these terminals is that you have to pair them with a particular register or lane. Okay, so you'll see here in the tools menu there is an item here that says pair credit card terminal. So that's where you start. Once you log in to a particular lane in the particular POS channel, then you go ahead and click that pair credit card terminal item in the tools menu. Okay, that brings up a dialog like here, which will by default present the address and all that kind of stuff for that particular location. Okay, and then it will ask you to enter in the serial number of the particular device, which is something that is there on the back of the device. So once you enter that and you click next, as long as that can be detected on the network, which is either a wired one or a wireless one, then that connection between that terminal and this particular checkout register is complete. Okay, and then you're set up to essentially manage the payment processing through that particular terminal. Okay, now if you do it at some point have to swap it out or move things around, then there is an item here to unpair. Okay, so that's where you can basically delink and then substitute it or make a change, etc. Okay. So the process in terms of how the transaction would carry forward is, you would add the product just like you do now. Down here in payment, since you may have a combination of payments, let's say somebody's paying partially with check and then partially with a credit card, you'd essentially select what that payment types are. Okay, and if it's a credit card, it doesn't matter which type you select. Okay, so here I've shown an example where I've selected Visa for this $3.78. Okay, and then when you do checkout, okay, you'll get a dialog that looks like this, where it shows a spinning wheel and says, okay, now the customer needs to process the card on that particular terminal. Okay, so the customer puts in the card, or either if it's a chip card, then he inserts it into the device. If it's if it's not a chip card, then he swipes it. Okay. At that point, the communication between that terminal and your payment processor happens. Payment processor returns a successful processing of the card, and then it returns back to our system. Okay, and here at the bottom in the payment map panel here, you can see that it now has automatically filled in how was it was paid. So we're not storing the full card information, but enough for you to be able to kind of see how this thing was paid. Okay. And this pops here just before the receipt printing happens. Okay, so so essentially with this device, the processing is happening separately on that terminal, but there is an integrated communication happening between the point of sale and that terminal that allows you, the sales associates that's doing the checkout, to kind of monitor the process and manage it with the customer. Okay. So that's essentially all the stuff on the point of sale. Okay. And then the final piece here is the things on the back office. So we've added a lot of things on the back office as well in terms of new capabilities, and most of these driven by customer requests and so on. So the first big one is 3 new product types. So we have kits, proxy products, and dropship products. So what are kits? Kits are bundles of finished goods that pull inventory from the components of the kit. Okay, so for those of you who are familiar with assemblies, which we have supported in the system for a while, this is the presentation of the kit is very similar, right? So you got a list of products that you say are part of this kit. The difference between the assembly and the kit is that the assembly is pre-built inventory. It carries its own inventory. So when you actually create an assembly, it pulls components from the inventory from the components at that point in time, and then you're essentially creating these assemblies and keeping them on the shelf, right? With kits, these are not pre-built. Okay, so kits do not carry their own inventory. Okay, it's the point at the point of sale when you receive an order for one of these kits, and when you ship them, that's the point at which they automatically get pulled from the component inventory that went into essentially shipping that kit. Okay, so it's a loose collection or a bundle of finished goods, but it does have its own pricing, it has its own SKU number, it has its own product name, and so on. Okay. Proxy is, as the name suggests, an alias. Okay, so if you have a particular product that you want to sell in either as multiple brands or different product names or SKUs, then proxy is a mechanism for you to do that. So when you set up a proxy product, you're going to say it's a proxy product, and then you're going to say what is the master product that it references. Okay, so proxy product as well does not carry any inventory of its own. It's just a pointer that says, okay, this SKU really is the other one, which is the master one that carries actually the inventory. Okay, so you can think of various uses for this particular thing, but the main one is, from a marketing standpoint, you could present this in, as multiple products in different marketplaces under different brands and names and those types of things. The dropship is a product type that basically recognizes the fact that you do not carry inventory in store at your warehouse, but that these products are always shipped directly from vendor to customer. Okay, in which case this also basically will not have inventory information in the system, and there are additional automations that we can do in terms of how we send this information to QuickBooks, and what happens when you create a PO for these types of products, etc. So that's where this thing really comes in handy. The next one is warehouse bin locations. So every product it can include bin information now for each stock location. Okay, and this information automatically gets included in pick tickets, packing slips, etc. And it is also available in the warehouse management app. So let me just quickly show you a couple of these things. Okay, so if I go and I say new product, you can see that the product types are now pulled into a separate panel of their own. Okay, and this is where you got the kit, the proxy, and the dropship, right? So these are the 3 new product types that are available for you to select as you create these products. Okay, if I go to the product list, and let me pull up one of them here. Now, if I go under stock locations, you can see there is a column for bin location. Okay, and if I click this, I can make edits to the bin location right here. Okay, all of this stuff is also available for import, right, through spreadsheets and stuff like that. So if you didn't want to do this one by one, you certainly have the ability for you to import the bin locations for all of your products together as well. Okay. The product creation wizard and price book edit. So one of the things that we've added in V9 is, in addition to the new product capability, which we've always had, which presents a form with a bunch of fields, we've also added a wizard now that does a few things that you previously took sort of manual steps for you to first create the product, then add it to a price book, and then add it to a vendor price book, and so on. Now with this wizard, you can essentially do all that stuff in a step-by-step fashion. So let's say I say this product, and I put in a product code. Okay, I select one of these, I select what the type is, I click next. Okay, so here you can see it presents me, okay, the list of all the price books in the system, and I can enter the pricing for each of them, right here. Okay, and so on. So once I do this, as I click next, the association of this product with these price books get automatically made with that particular pricing that you just entered, right? So you don't need to remember to kind of go and do these things separately. And similarly with the vendor price book. So this is the purchasing side of it, right? Who do you buy this product from? Okay, so I can select the vendor. I can say this is the preferred one. The product code is automatically entered as part of the vendor part number, but you can modify that here if you wanted. You can enter the vendor price that you want to buy this at. Let's say it's $345. And then this is the conversion inventory quantity per order quantity, and how many do you typically order, right? So you can do all of this stuff now in a step-by-step fashion, and you click next and finish, and then it essentially creates the product and takes you back to the original product form, where you can now make changes to some of the other fields that do exist within that product. But the creation of the price books and all that stuff automatically is done before we landed here for you to complete the rest of the setup. Okay. If you go back to the product, similarly with the editing of pricing, etc., we've added a couple of buttons that now simplify what it takes for you to make changes to price books, etc., for a particular product. So in this particular product, you see there are two buttons here, one for editing the price book, the other for editing the vendor price books. So if I click that, I get that same type of dialog that you saw within the wizard, right? Here you can see that we have this product in many of these price books and what the pricing is. I can now make changes to one or more of them and hit save. Okay, and similarly with the vendor price books. Okay, so this particular product is not in any vendor price book, and so I can now select one of them and add it. Okay, okay, so so that's the product creation side. Auto PO creation. So when the product inventory hits reorder levels, we've added the ability for you to automatically generate POs if you wanted to your preferred vendor. Okay, and that's done by this field here, auto create PO at reorder level. So if you turn this thing on, okay, then the system will automatically create that PO, and you will find that on the purchase orders tab. If you turn on notifications, you will get a notification when that PO is created, so that you know it's there, and for you to go and essentially take a look at it and process it as you see fit. And that notification goes to the product stock manager that's designated for each particular product. Okay. We have a bunch of spreadsheet imports that we've added, ability for you to import purchase orders via CSV files, and also updating vendor pricing for products via CSV files. Both of those, like all other imports, they're available at the bottom of each of these modules. So for purchase orders, you can see them here. This is the template, and then the import happens through this link that's presented here. And similarly with products, you can find the one for the vendor pricing. There is a template, and then the export is available as well. Okay. PDF templates. With the various templates that we have for sales receipts, invoices, etc., in the Enterprise Edition, where you have the ability for you to do customization, we've added now the ability for you to modify what the product line items and how they're presented. So earlier, those things were kind of inserted as a block with no ability to customize. in V9, you have the ability to kind of change that. So you can choose what columns you want to present for the product line items, how you want to kind of present it, whether it's certain information in the first column, and so on and so forth. So so this is pretty nice, and it's been a heavily requested feature. So we're happy to kind of get that included in V9. The final piece here is Commerce Hub. So one of the sales channels that we have added in V9 is support for integration with Commerce Hub. And this is a provider that integrates with some of the bigger retailers like Home Depot and Walmart and stuff like that. So with V9, we have integration with commercehub.com. Now, Commerce Hub is a separate subscription. You do have to sign up with them separately. But once you do, then we have the ability to pull orders, post tracking information back, and so on. Okay. Okay, so that's the back office. Warehouse management app, version 2.0 is in the iTunes store now. Bin location support, which I mentioned, is included there. We also have a new feature for adding a picture to products. So you can see there's this icon here. And what this allows you to do is you can use your iPad or iPhone camera to take pictures of your products and automatically associate them with each of these products that you select them for. So once you click Add Picture, you select a product, you take your pictures, either one or more, and then when you sync to the back office, those gets attached to the product. There is an additional one that's coming by end of the month that includes some enhancements, especially on the picking flow, where now we have support for bins and all this kind of stuff. And so there's some automation there in terms of grouping your picking by bins and by SKUs and stuff like that. And one of the major ones that we've done a lot of improvement on is the support for lot products. So the ability for you to receive, for example, multiple lot numbers for the same PO, for the same product, stuff like that. So there's a lot of changes related to lot products that have gone into this version as well. Okay. All right. So what's the rollout plan? We've had about 100 customers now on V9 who opted into the beta over the last many weeks and really have helped iron out some of the kinks, etc. in V9. And that covers everything except the BI module. So the BI module we really have not put in the hands of customers yet. So that's going to be something we'll start doing soon. But the rest of V9 will be rolling out on the night of 9/4, which is the Labor Day weekend. And so all the customers who are not currently on V9, that upgrade happens automatically night of 9/4. With the new BI module, I think the rollout will be a little bit more phased over September, October. And if you want to be one of those people that are kind of the first ones to adopt it, please email us at onboarding@agiliron.com, and we'll work with you to get that thing set up and rolled out. So in the meantime, if you do add the BI module and you've not been set up for it, and you go into the system and you look it up, it's going to just present a message saying something very similar, which is that you're not set up, contact onboarding@agiliron.com. But we hope that within the next 6 to 8 weeks, we'll do a little bit more field testing on that module in beta, and then begin rolling out to everybody. Okay, final piece, what's coming in Q4. So we have some pretty big features rolling out later this year as well. First of which is multi-currency support, and this is essentially covering the ability for you to manage your transactions, etc., in multiple currencies and across the various channels. On the QuickBooks Online integration, summary transactions, which is the ability for you to post to QuickBooks a summary of the set of transactions as opposed to individual ones with individual customers being created. That's something that's in the works. And this is especially useful in cases where you're doing a lot of transactions per day and you really don't want, like, for example, customer orders from eBay and Amazon, stuff like that, all of them flowing individually into QBO. Webhooks, which is something that Intuit has been talking about for a long time, is now something that they have released in late July. What this allows us to do is actually get events from QuickBooks back into Agiliron. So, for example, if we send a purchase order from Agiliron to QuickBooks, and that's posted there as a bill, when you make a bill payment, right now we don't have a mechanism to receive that information back and mark that PO as paid. But with webhooks, now we have the ability to do that. So So we'll be adding some of those automations that goes towards basically getting events back from QuickBooks Online when something happens there, and then making the appropriate adjustments on the Agiliron side to reflect some of those things that you did on the other side. Amazon FBA inventory management. So this is one of the things that's been in the works. And to clarify here, the order side of FBA is something we already support. This is actually having to do with the movement of goods between your warehouse or your vendor and your FBA account in the Amazon warehouse. So there's a set of processes around that, and support for that will be something that we'll be adding soon. A pay invoice is the ability for you to send an invoice to a customer and include a link that they can go to make a payment. Okay, so that's something that's coming. And then in terms of the usability side of this, for the e-commerce stores that Agiliron offers, we'll be adding drag and drop design editing capabilities that remove some of the effort that goes into customizing how the store looks, right? So you're still going to start with one of the themes that we provide, but with this design editing, you can do a lot of customization easily, with drag and drop and that type of thing. Finally, EDI side, we are working with SPS Commerce, and so I expect that there'll be the first version of that rolling out in Q4 as well. Okay, so that's everything. That's it. I know this was a lot of stuff that we covered in a short time frame here. We'll send a recording of this along so that if I ran through something very quickly, that you can have the ability to go back and look at this at your convenience. And let me switch to Q&A and see if there are some quick things that we can answer in the few minutes that we have left. Okay, so it doesn't look like we have too many questions posted here. So I think we have a couple of minutes left. If there are any things that you guys want to address, please go ahead and post that in the chat box. Okay, otherwise we'll wrap it up here, and thank you all for joining, and we should have this recording to you by end of the day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.